let's talk about just managing your life as a human being while trying to keep your kids, especially your identified child, on track. And, we try, I think, to be a good employee. Um, you know, there are a lot of parents out there with really high level jobs. These are like careers that they chose, that they put a lot of time and effort into preparing for. And then, everything is going along great. And maybe your kid is 10, maybe your kid is 15, and all of a sudden it's like record scratch. And now you've got to completely adjust things. Or, maybe you chose to adopt a child knowing that there might be some challenges, but maybe not knowing how many challenges or how life-changing that would be. And I think that sometimes we forget about ourselves as moms, as human beings with our own wants and desires and goals in life. But we still, the majority of work we know lands on women's shoulders. Of the household work lands on women's shoulders. We know that in most relationships, work is not split, household chores are not split 50-50. That would be ideal, but that doesn't seem to be what happens. And I think it's kind of telling when a dad shows up at a doctor appointment visit, a meds check, at a school IEP meeting, and all of a sudden everybody sits up straight and straightens their tie and pays attention because dad's there. It kind of tells us that quite often they go so infrequently when they do show up, people are like, whoa, something's going on, dad's here. And that's not really, I don't think, a knock on dads. I think that men have been in situations historically where they are more likely, they were put in the position where they had to be the breadwinner, where because of income imbalance and pay imbalance, men tend to make more. So sometimes it makes more sense for women to take the day off, since maybe they're making less, maybe they're in less of a high-powered career. But at the end of the day, for a lot of reasons, things fall on our shoulders. So I thought, let's get together and chat about how things are going. So how are things going? Nothing like putting you on the spot, right?
I think this school year has been rough, like with my Riker. We just had a med check last week to kind of get him, he's grown a little bit. So the meds
Yeah.
that might have worked great last year that the teachers went on and on about, like how well behaved he had been and focused. And, now meds are wearing off at 2 instead of lasting the whole day. So we had a med check last week. He's been very emotional. It's just been, it's October 5th. It's been a rough year already, and I can't believe I'm saying that, but it has been a very rough year. So that's what I was telling you earlier, Christina. I'm kind of here for some tips because I feel like I'm a hot mess over here. With sports and kids and grandbabies and horses and kids and med checks and doctor's appointments. And you're right. God love my husband. I have a fabulous husband, and he is a wonderful man, a wonderful father, a wonderful provider. But when I got sick 2 years ago, I remember laying on the table telling them, this can't happen to me because my husband does not know where the eye doctor is. And I kept saying that, like, my husband doesn't know where the doctors are. They're looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, he doesn't. Right. So everything falls on me, like kind of fixing Riker, to say nicely, falls on me. So it's the med checks, it's the trying this, it's the making him take meds. So trying to get on a schedule, and mornings are rough for us. Evenings are rough for us. He comes home from school and he throws fits and screams and cries. And so again, I'm here for any tips y'all want to throw at me, because it's been a rough school year.
I don't think you're alone. And I think that that's kind of why I wanted to talk about it, because if there's parents listening We see everybody's A reel, and we don't often see people having a tough time. And so, I mean, I think we're real with each other,
Very.
and so I think it's helpful for parents to kind of hear that too. Like, yeah, no, we don't have it all together. Some days are better.
I have never been that person that anyone has ever said, "Oh wow, she has her stuff together," because I always look like a deer in the headlights, no matter what I'm on. I could be all right, like on top of my game that day, and I'm still gonna look like this. So it hasn't been as bad this year as I anticipate it being. So we're gonna go with that. My daughter, that is my identified child, the one that has always struggled, is doing extremely well in middle school.
Oh, good.
Do I
Love it.
love it? No, I don't love it, but her grades are the best they've ever been. Her teachers had nothing to complain about. I think the she has ADHD, and it's, even with medication, even with therapy, it's never been not the elephant in the room. Like everybody knows as soon as they meet her, because she's just all over the place. But she has one B, all A's and everything else. She's in all mainstream classes. She's holding her own. The two classes that are co-taught, because she has co-teachers in there with two of them, are the ones that she really doesn't need any help in. The only teacher that's used any of the accommodations in her 504 this year is ELA, and she does it really quietly, but she has 101% in there. And reading has always been what she struggled in, so that is a win for us. Maybe I just had to keep on her, and something's working finally, because I always felt like I wasn't doing enough because she wasn't getting what she needed, but she's doing okay. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. Last week we brought the school. I had a meeting with the school, and they brought in school-based therapy for my identified child, and then yeah, which is fine. Anything he needs, if they feel that they ESAP him, and if he needs it, we'll do it. I'm not that parent, But then during the meeting, they said, "Well, we would like to set up a meeting with you for your younger child." And God love him, but it's just it's a lot. And I think at some points people do look at us and think, "Oh, I can't." They'll tell me all the time, "I don't know how you do it, everything." And I'm like, "You haven't seen me sitting in my car in the parking lot crying, have you?" When you see people on social media is like the devil, because these people look perfect. They're driving up to school with their mom's hair's fixed in the morning. They look nice. The kids get out. My kids get out. Their cowlicks are sticking up. I'm like screaming at him to get out of the car. Teague doesn't even have his backpack on. Like it's time people need to be real and be there for each other, because I mean, I'm not that person. I mean, Chrissy, you're part of our family now.
it's how we became friends, was crying in the parking lot. Jill and I both at school pick up. She's always like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "Why?" I'm like, "Oh, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong." And then one day she's like, "All right, I'm getting in to the car." And so every morning for a whole year, Jill got in my car while we were waiting to drop our kids off, and we just
Every
talked about
morning.
life. Yeah.
And you know what? Everybody needs that. I always say everybody needs somebody. And I needed that every morning. And I used to go to work at my other job, and I would get in the car with Chrissy every morning for that 15-20 minutes and just like decompress, because my kid has a cowlick that's sticking up. He has two different socks on, but you know what? He's here. He's clean. His teeth are brushed. He ate. He's excited to go to school. So it's
That's half the battle.
exactly. So it's not anything to be embarrassed about, to be the hot mess, because I am literally the definition. But I mean, we talked about this before about like getting really good routines the night before and routine. But when you have an identified child, that child might wake up and decide, "I'm not about a routine today."
Right.
So
I love I love the people who say, go into their closet and pick out their outfits for the whole week. And they have those really nice like shoe organizers that are in the closets, and they have like a day of the week. They have everything folded and put in there. And I'm like, I love that idea. It's not gonna fly. But but it sounds great. And I think that, we hear these tips from people who maybe don't have some of the challenges that we might have, or maybe they do and they just don't tell us, right?
they cry at home.
That Right.
Not in
These are
public.
the things that are supposed to
Yeah.
work. And you know, when we try them with our kiddos, it's like, you want me to put together an outfit, like, and then my child has a meltdown and pulls everything out of their closet. We had a situation one day where one of my kiddos took the screen out of the window in the bedroom and started throwing things out into the front
Oh
lawn.
my God. Oh Lord.
It's funny now.
Not bad.
Right? So so I'm kind of thinking like, yeah, you could spend all this time getting everything organized and stuff, but sometimes for our kiddos it just doesn't work.
Well, that's like it.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's okay. That's not us. It's just our kiddo needed to have a meltdown at that moment, you know, and the door's closed and have your meltdown. I'm not really sure how to help, you know?
We did that. That happened with us this year. My son plays football, and my husband's the president, so we have to be at everything all the time. And my son was just not handling school and then going to practice. And I don't think you were at practice, Chrissy, but he was having a meltdown every night at practice. And the problem was, so he would have this horrible meltdown. My husband's carrying him out onto the field. We looked like cavemen, screaming and yelling. And as soon as my husband would put him down, he would take off running and run back to the car. And my husband chases him down and drags him back out there. And he's just carrying him like a sack of potatoes. And the one time my son stripped down to his underwear, screaming and yelling, I'm not playing. And he gets in the car. And you know what? 20 minutes later, he came out of the car, perfectly normal. Like, well, I hate that world, but you know,
Right, but like nothing happened.
not sweet as can be, laughing. He just needed that 20-minute window between school and football
Yeah.
to have a meltdown. And you know what? Like, I say this all the time. So we all know I have 6 children. My identified child, well, this one is number 5 of 6. And he has a little bit more going on than my other children. You never know what it really is like until you have a child like this. I was that mom. Oh my goodness, they just need spanked. They need put in the corner, take their phone away. It's totally different when it's your child. And people probably,
Well, it's
and I let him have his meltdowns. He needs it. I'm 49. I have meltdowns.
yeah, I think that like I said, until like sometimes all those parenting things, there's really not much that you could do about it. You know, like the parenting manuals that say, you know, do this, do that. I could imagine parents standing on the sidelines being like, well, if he doesn't want to play football, don't make him play football. And it's like, but it's not about football. It's about whatever's happening. So for me to pull him from football, then he's going to be mad he doesn't understand why he can't play football. They kind of sometimes don't connect that meltdown is, you know, and yeah, I remember, you know, my first child got all my attention and focus, and we did everything. We had the bedtime routine with the bath and, you know, and the cuddles and the book and the, you know, classical music to go to bed to and stuff. And that happened with, you know, with my second child. And then, you know, my identified child came along and it was just a whole different ball of wax. And what I love is people helpfully saying, oh, why don't you have a bedtime routine? Really? Really? Do you think that I had 2 other children
And I never had a bedtime
and we
routine.
never thought to have a bedtime routine?
I know.
Or I had 2 other children and we did a bedtime routine and I had, you know, I had another kid and was like, forget it.
Yeah, you're just gonna
You could
be feral. Go
yeah,
ahead. Just
you're
put it
gonna
in
be
feral.
wild.
Well, that's what I always say. And I, you know, and I tell people all the time, because again, I have such age gaps with my kids. And I always say, yes, I'm a different kind of parent because I was a young parent, then I was kind of like in my 30s parent, and now I'm an older parent. I said, but it's still the principles. But you do not know the struggles until you have, you know, a child that has these challenges. And My 28-year-old son had his own thing going on. He had an IEP, he had, a couple diagnoses, but it's not the same as these diagnoses. He's not the same kid. He's not the same person that my
Right.
9-year-old is. And my poor 9-year-old, I feel so bad for him, because when he was little, it was cute. When he was the ADHD kid, when he was 2 and 3 years old, he was cute. Everybody loved him because he was like a wild animal. He was climbing trees and he was climbing like everybody thought he was great. But now that he's 9 and he has meltdowns and he's wild and he's sometimes uncontrollable because of, how he's feeling. Oh, it's not cute anymore. You just need to punish him. You need to do this. If you would have parented him differently. And I laugh because I was probably that parent too. I'm not going to say I wasn't. I was probably that parent
Oh, yeah.
that stood back and thought, you know what, if you would, reprimand your kid a little bit better, if you would control your kid. And now God blessed me with him, and I totally see a different side of it. And for those people that watch my child have a meltdown and think that I'm just a, lazy parent, good luck, because, it is what it is. And, my son is going to rule the world one day. And they're all going to say, oh my goodness, I remember that kid when he was feral,
Oh, he's awesome, but he does give you a run for your money. You know what I mean? He does well with other parents or, those kinds of things, but you are his safe place and he does give you a run for your money. But he's a great kid, great personality. I
You know
just
what?
love him to death.
And I can say he does have his meltdowns. He does have his moments, but he's a phenomenal, like, human being. Like, he honestly, and not that I say I have a favorite, but he is pretty darn close. You know,
He's just a kind-hearted little human, and he really is. He's so sweet, and maybe because he loves me, so of course I'm gonna like
he
think
does
he's the
love
best
Christy.
ever. But I love him. He's such a good boy, and it's
Isn't
hard.
that isn't that often the case though? I mean, I hear from so many parents like, my child may be a handful, they may be super wiggly, they may get into trouble at school all the time, but man, do they have a kind heart, or, they have their skill, they have their talent. So, I wanted to kind of see if there's anything that you're doing like as your own human beings. We forget that parents are human beings too, and have needs and wants and dreams and hopes, and and should have fun and hobbies and things like that. So I was wondering if there's anything that you're doing to even just ease your load a little bit. Like, I know in my house Friday nights were frozen pizza night, and we lived somewhere where it wasn't like you could have pizza delivered or you could even run up the street to grab a pizza. If I got pizza from the good pizza place, by the time I got home, it was cold. So we did frozen pizza night and a movie pretty much every Friday night. And I would probably like fall asleep on the couch as soon as like the movie started. But that was like something that the kids looked forward to, and they were all excited, grabbing their blankets and their pillows, and they knew they were going to have like pizza and like snacks and stuff. And so that was like my way of kind of like, I was totally out of energy by Friday night, and so that was kind of like my way of hanging on. Do you guys have any kind of things that you may not think are like super tips that maybe other parents haven't thought about?
I know for us, like, the only nights we don't do anything are Wednesday nights and Sundays. So my
Mhm.
boys love Wednesday nights because that's the night that we don't have any practices. Well, Logan does, but my little boys don't. So my husband's home, I am home. They get home from school, they change their clothes, and they know we live on a farm out in the middle of nowhere. So I'm in the barn and they get on their dirt bikes, and literally my husband puts the gas jugs out. And I'm not joking, those boys will ride dirt bikes for 2 or 3 hours. And that is their thing. Like, that's kind of like our downtime. And they just so enjoy not having something to do. We are a very busy family. So that is like, that's their thing. It's usually Wednesday nights. Now, Sundays, we kind of get into a bunch of stuff because, again, we live on a farm. But I think Wednesday nights are their favorites. And it's literally either playing in the mud or riding dirt bikes all night. And it's just downtime. It's not like, I'm sure we probably do pizza every Wednesday night too, because I'm in the barn, I'm not cooking. But I noticed that, like, last night, T got home and he said, it's dirt bike night, and first thing he did, all he did was change his shoes and put his helmet on and rode for hours. So they look forward to that. My boys, these two, look very much forward to not having something scheduled to do.
I like
Yeah.
days with
How about
nothing
you,
scheduled,
Chrissy?
yeah. I try to plan things as best I can for the week to make it easier on myself, and that helps too. Like, if I make sure that they have like their cheer uniforms ready for their games and their practice wear ready, and the boys have their football practice stuff ready and their stuff ready for their games. Like, if I take the couple hours it takes to get all that stuff ready, I will have a much better week. So the more I
Yeah.
plan, it seems like the better. And I know, like, I can't pick their clothes day to day because somebody will cry about something. So I don't do that. But the night before, I do make them approve them so that they can't have a meltdown about it the next day. Like, you pick this, you're cool with it, we're cool with it. Which sometimes leads them to wearing stuff that I wouldn't necessarily have picked, but whatever. I pick my battle. But no, planning ahead is helpful and
Yeah.
taking time. Like, I was getting to the point where I was just so tired that I like couldn't keep my eyes open. And so I have PTO left. I've just been I took a random day on Monday. I have another random day planned in like the middle of the month, just so I don't like die. I did a couple of things I
Yeah.
needed to do on Monday, but then I met my friend Aubrey and we went like thrift shopping, and it gave me like a couple hours of a break. And I think that that's important because I will be the last person to give myself like friend time or break time or whatever. And I can tell in my own like irritability and motivation if I don't take that time.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. Oh yeah, I forgot. It's crazy that you forget about things. So everything we do is scheduled. Everything we do is revolved around usually football all year round. And I when I got this job, first thing I did with my first paycheck was plan a Disney trip for my two little boys. Um, Everything is for everybody else. Everything is for Delaney and her new baby. Everything's for Maddie. Everything's for Logan. Every weekend, 6 days a week, Logan trains for football. So these poor babies have been drugged to everything. So this month, it's paid off, ready to go. I am taking the two little boys to Disney, and it's about them. We're going down for Halloween and for Christmas, and we're going to take our time. We're going to look at what they want to look at. It's just about them.
That's
So
awesome.
Do you have a Target card?
no,
Are you in the Target circle?
Yeah.
Okay. If you buy Disney gift cards from Target, you get 10% off.
okay.
So if you buy a $100 Disney gift card at Target, you pay $90 for it.
Oh, okay. See, I don't know all these
Now,
rules.
with the money that you spend at Disney, $10 is like, okay, so that's like a quarter of a soda. But hey, I'm not proud. We go to Disney. My oldest has phenylketonuria, so she follows a special diet. She can't PKU. She can't eat protein. She's an adult now and she's on medication, so she's able to eat much more than she used to be able to. But Disney is a super easy vacation for us because they manage her. They're used to families with children with PKU, and so it's super easy for them to have her pasta and make like meals for her.
Oh.
So that's kind of been an easy place for us to go, and we have started to kind of stay on Disney property. So we get there and we don't have to think about anything. It's like, what park are we going to today? And that's that. But yeah, Disney gift cards at Target, 10% off, are a big tip for me. As a matter of fact, the last time we went, we paid for the trip with gift cards to save. I probably ended up saving a couple $100 that way. Like everything from paying Disney for the the trip, the tickets, everything, and then spending them while we were there. It's also a great way of making sure you don't overspend. But yeah, I think that if you're in a position where you're able to kind of do a family vacation, I think that that's lovely. And I know that schools, it is important for children to be in school. We've talked about that. It's super important for children to be in school. But sometimes family time is also important. And, our favorite park is Epcot. So, we love going to the different countries and stuff. And, I mean, it's just an easy kind of place for us to go. But there's nothing wrong with like, going away, taking a Friday and a Monday off and going to a cabin out in the woods or, whatever you want. Those things can be nice as long as we kind of recognize too that for moms, vacations could be a lot of work.
They are. That's what we're staying at Disney. Everything's there. That's what we're like. I'm trying to make it just as easy on me and enjoyable for them. Like like the parks that we're going to, we already have everything set up and scheduled. And because I know what they like, I'm not going to drag them. We went to Disney a couple years ago. My husband hated it, refuses to go back. So it's just me and the boys. And, I just know what they're going to like. And they have no clue what Disney really is. They know the movies. We have the Disney Channel, but, they have no clue. And then we're going, like I said, for Halloween and for the Halloween party for the trick or treat. We're going for 2 days of Christmas and the Christmas party too. So.
Oh, that's fun. We did the Christmas party when we were there. We originally had planned on going down for Halloween, and then they had a hurricane, and so we had to reschedule, and we're down there last year for my birthday. So that was kind of nice. Yeah. Chrissy, any tips on how you maintain sanity? Or, I mean, maybe you're not sane. Maybe,
No, I'm
you seem
not.
sane to me.
I'm a little crazy. No, I'm just kidding. But, well, not really. But I just take it one day at a time. And I try not to like stress out too bad about what's going to happen next week or the week after or whatever. We just take it one week at a time. How are we going to get through this week? Because my husband swings shifts and my kids are in a million activities and I'm kind of like the Lone Ranger and they're all young. Nobody drives yet. Nobody's really able to be home by themselves yet. And so I take it 1 week at a time. Like this week's okay because he's on day shift. Afternoon shift's terrible, and I usually have to call in other moms to help that week so that I can get them everywhere that they're going. But yeah, we're a week to week operation, and it seems to work okay. Everybody gets to where they're going. They might be late, but they get there.
These kids are
I think one of the
clean and loved and fed, and we're surviving.
Right? Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, we have to be okay with that. If your neighbor's grass isn't cut and it's bothering you, and you're maybe not a parent, or maybe you have everything together, go knock on the door and say, "Hey, do you mind if I cut your grass?" If it bothers you that much, cut their grass. Don't call the city and turn them in because their grass is like a little too high. I think as parents, sometimes we just have to kind of maybe lower the bar a little, or like, I don't even know if I would call lowering the bar, like make it realistic. In my family, we eat leftovers. It's not, I know that there are people who are like, we don't like leftovers. Like, it's not an option. I would make a crock pot full of meatballs, and we'd have spaghetti meatballs. We'd have meatball subs. We'd have like meatballs. I would make a giant pot of chicken soup, and then, we would use the chicken from the soup for like other things. But, I would kind of cook in bulk, mostly because I didn't, I don't want to come home every night and have to make a meal from scratch. Sometimes I couldn't do that. Your kids are in football. You're like squeaking, like you're doing like you're on two tires pulling into the drive. Get in the car, hurry up, let's go. By the time you get home, you have time to like hose them down and, push them towards bed sometimes. But I think just being realistic about what can happen And like you said, so what if they're wearing two different color socks? You guys know my sock rule. If they're white, they match. I don't care what size they are. Um, you know, but they're clean-ish. They're fed, and and you're hanging in there.
I've had to
I
learn
think it's okay to be like
this
that.
past year to give myself some grace. I can't I can't do everything. I can't make them all happy. But at night when we go to bed, everybody's healthy. They're, smiling. I'm usually chasing somebody, trying to get somebody in the shower or in bed. But I've had to learn to give myself the grace because it all falls on me.
It
So
does. Yeah, that's actually one thing that working has taught me is that I have to, like, take a chance to give myself a break every once in a while. It was you guys really that, like, pushed me to be that way, but it's so necessary. Like, I never did before. When I was staying home, I just, like, I'd be if I was sick, like, I was sick yesterday. If I was sick, I would not have went back to bed. When I was a stay-at-home mom yesterday, I called off work and I went back to bed and I slept, like, for 5 hours because I was like, "I have so much work to do Thursday and Friday. If I'm still sick, I won't be able to do it, so I have to, like, not be sick." So, that's really good life advice is to take the time if you can, and even if you can't, you just have to stop. It'll still all be there. Like, I still have last night's dishes in the sink. I'm gonna go do them after, I get some stuff done for work this morning, but you just gotta stop when your body will make you.
Yeah, and that's it. I think sometimes we go through these, our kids get sick, and then if you have multiple kids, you have one kid that gets sick, and just as they're getting better, the next kid gets sick. And then maybe if you're unlucky, you get sick with that second kid. So now you've got a sick kid, a kid who's almost better, and you're sick. And that's a really tough situation. I love now when I make chicken soup. That's my family's thing. Where we make chicken soup. I like put some in a Ziploc bag and throw some in the freezer. When my kids were little, I had backup plans for backup plans. The only thing I didn't have a backup plan for was when somebody got sick. Again, it was that everything stops. I run to the grocery store, I get stuff, we make chicken soup. They get to camp out on the couch and be sick, and I take care of them. And it was funny. My younger daughter said to me the one day, "Mommy, would you make me sick soup?" Because she didn't feel well, and they just associated. We get sick, we have chicken soup, and I don't know that it's the chicken soup. I think it's just the
yes,
attention, and that comes with it. But I think when you're out in public and people say things to you that are ridiculous. Why don't you when they should all over you? Um, it's great if you have a friend that you could share that ridiculous thing that somebody else says to you. You should just spank them. Like, you think that spanking my child who's having a meltdown is going to help? I mean, have you ever met a child?
you ever had a
Um,
meltdown?
or look at what your kid's wearing. Why are they wearing that? Well, they're in clothes today, so I'm happy. It is nice if you have a friend that you can share those ridiculous things that people say to you, a friend who you could be really real with. And if you haven't found that person yet, give one of our FSPs a call if you're struggling with your kiddos. And we've been there. We are there. It doesn't end. Don't think about that. And we don't mean that in a bad way. It just means that maybe our parenting journey is a little different. For some parents, there's some really serious things that are happening where your child is involved with law enforcement. Maybe your child is in a residential treatment facility or in the hospital. Like we get it. We understand that things can be really, really, really bad. And then maybe the other end of the spectrum is maybe things are just really, really, really hectic. So we're here. Do you guys have one bit of inspiration for people before we go? Tip, inspiration, anything.
Are you going to?
It's worth it. The kids are worth the work. I mean, I always like beat myself up over my oldest with school, but then she hit middle school and she's like found her stride finally. And it's like, okay, all of that extra stuff has been worth it because I put skills in there I didn't even know that she really had. We've been working towards them. I thought she'd never get them, and she actually has them. So keep going. It's worth it.
In my support groups, I used to tell these people, you know, I know that times are difficult. Again, I have 6 kids. I've been through a lot of stuff. I won't say I've been through everything. I've been through a lot. They're still your kids. They're still great kids. They are going through things too. People don't realize it. Kids go through things too. They're dealing with things. Just love them through it. And that sounds corny and that sounds like something old fashioned. Love them through it, because you know what? They're going to come out on the other side, and you're going to be so glad that you're there to witness that. And find your person. I have my person's Chrissy. Again, she goes through crazy too. We go through crazy together. And self-care. I didn't know what self-care was, and I'll never forget the interview for this job. You asked me, what do I do for self-care? And I thought, I don't even know. And I've worked on that a lot for myself, because what I have to be my best person to help my child be their best person. You know, so I can't
Yeah.
help him if I'm tired and I'm cranky, I'm exhausted. So I have to
Yeah.
find something, even if it's something little for myself. I have to find something to get back to me, to make myself happy and give myself grace if I'm going to help him do the same thing for himself. So find your person, self-care, and love them through it.
I don't think that anything replaces a mom's love. And even if your kids are having a tough time and things aren't going really well, and you know, you have a morning where your kids say, "I hate you. You're the meanest mommy in the world." Like that's okay. No matter what, I love you, and you know, I think it's kind of like little tiny drops in a bucket. When your sink drips, you don't, until you put like a cup or something underneath that, you don't really realize how much water is accumulating. And I think that it's the same way. We, year after year after year, you go to those IEP meetings or you go to therapy week after week after week, and it doesn't feel like things are changing. And then one day, if you're lucky, you hear your child using a technique that maybe they learned in therapy, or you catch your child in a situation that you knew previously they would have had a meltdown in, and maybe that moment they hold it together. And so it does, in the long run, pay off. So, and I mean, we can't say it often enough. Give yourself grace.